5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
High and low, it's how I roll. A shooting star in a film noir. I'm floating around 10 feet over the ground. I'm floating around 10 feet over the ground. I am no average Joe. Be with me, and you will see. More than you ever wanted to.
Hey there, it's John Baranchuk coming at you. Welcome to Grasping Sasquatch Stories and Science. I'm Dr. John Baranchuk. You can call me Dr. B, Dr. John, whatever you'd like. I'm a medically retired counseling psychologist, and I had a specialty in neuropsychology and pain psychology, as well as counseling services. And I'm trying to bring psychologic science to the Bigfoot world. I want to thank all returning members for returning and attending and watching. And I want to thank any new people checking out the channel, and hope you enjoy your time here. I'm going to ask you to please subscribe. Subscribing helps both myself and the other shows on the Untold radio network. If you're into Sasquatch, there's a variety of awesome Bigfoot and Sasquatch shows that you need to check out with them. So please subscribe. We're going to be working on saying a lot less today on this show. I'd like you to put all your questions. If you have a question for me, I'm going to try and work on getting them up on the screen, though it doesn't look like anybody's commenting at this point, which is okay. If you want to talk amongst yourself, by all means, go ahead. Use all lowercase letters. If you have a question you'd like answered as the presentation goes on, put it in caps, and I will try and divide my attention and get to those questions. Other than that, today I'm going to start with a rather rapid fire summary of the past 2 weeks of my show, because if any new people are attending this time coming for a Sasquatch show, it's going to be kind of bizarre to come to a Sasquatch show and have somebody talking about relaxation, and what does that have to do with Sasquatch? So I'm going to go over a little bit of a summary. Going to, as usual, tell a story. Since our topic is still fight-flight, I'm going to tell you another fight-flight story, and then we'll move on from there. Hey, Craig, how are you, brother? Craig, you might notice me wearing a pendant here. In this pendant is a single blonde Sasquatch hair that Craig Roach himself found, and he submitted that to the DNA study currently going on, and was kind enough to share some of those hairs with me, so thank you. Hello, Connie, how are you? Nice to see you. So, by way of doing a quick summary from the first couple goals, my aspirational goals, the book started as Bigfoot Prep when I first published it, it was republished under Psychological Horizons and Scientific Bigfoot Research. And now it's going to be republished with the title of my podcast, Grasping Sasquatch. But when I first was working on the manuscript, it was called Bigfoot Prep. And the goal was to prepare any individual who is interested in going on and doing Bigfoot research. It was to prepare yourself emotionally, mentally, and scientifically to do the research and hopefully benefit the species. I don't know about the rest of you, but I continue to go on Bigfoot expeditions, not only to do research, but in fact, my primary goal remains having a Class A sighting, which I have not had to date. I'm hoping for one. Another hope for the book was helping the reader appreciate the importance of bringing experimental design and statistics in short numbers, which is the language of science, to prove causal relationships. When we go out and we hear a tree knock, or we find a footprint, or we hear a whoop, one, we want to have that experience, but we also want to be able to attribute that to Bigfoot. We want to be able to prove Bigfoot made that sound or left that print or whatever the case may be. But the way subjective or experiential research works is that it is primarily an experiential experience, and it forms the foundation. It forms the foundation for scientific Bigfoot research or scientific Sasquatch research, but is not scientific research in and of itself. Now, that's not me putting down experiential expeditions at all. Without the experiential expeditions, the scientists wouldn't have the raw data, the raw information that they need to know where to shine the light to try and do the investigations. On my expeditions, I noticed that there were a few chasms or gaps in the Bigfoot community. One of them was between the subjective phenomenological expeditions and the scientific experimental expeditions. There's a little overlap there. There's some scientists doing research on experiential expeditions and some phenomenologists or experiential folks involved in some scientific research as well. This is what the community looks. One of the gaps, though, remains between the scientists and the phenomenologists or the experientialists. If I could wave a magic wand and have my way, we'd have a big overlap with smaller groups of people doing pure science and pure experiential research. And the bulk of the research would be combining the subjective and experiential research outings with the scientific. I'm going to go back. In fact, on the BFRO website, basically they say what I just said earlier, that subjective phenomenological anecdotal evidence that's gathered on an experiential expedition, indirect evidence, that information is needed, or else there would be no more scientific discoveries themselves. As such, sighting reports by themselves are not scientific evidence, but they are what lead us to scientific evidence. The experiential efforts are providing the foundation to the house of Bigfoot, and science needs to join with them actually and make the house of Bigfoot, if you will. The other gap that I see is between what are termed people who believe in woo, which are forgive me if I don't get this right, but they're the spiritual, interdimensional, uh, kind of, I don't want to, magical isn't the right word because it's not necessarily magic, but folks in that camp believe that these beings are either experiential religious, um, interdimensional, or other types of creatures. And then you got the flesh and blood folks who believe that Bigfoot is just that, a flesh and blood creature. I think it's unfortunate that we have that gap, because one of the benefits of bringing psychologic science to the table is the fact that psychologic science is kind of tailor-made to discover both sides of that coin. I've got some experiments that I'm interested in performing on mind speak, zapping, infrasound, although that's not necessarily woo. And I've got some more flesh and blood kind of experiments, and psychology experimentation fits perfectly to do both sides, both kinds of research. And again, I'd like to see that bridge gapped if I had my way. We began looking at fight flight in the second session, the second study. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We defined it. Basically, we got the sympathetic division of the peripheral nervous system, peripheral being away from the spinal cord and the brain. And this is the on switch. And then the parasympathetic division of the peripheral nervous system is the off switch. And I would also make the point this week that you can have a fight flight response to a Bigfoot encounter. You can have and get overwhelmed from that fight flight reaction and still never develop PTSD. Not everybody that experiences fight flight develops post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people that have fight flight responses do end up developing post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a form of an anxiety disorder. And we talked about how many of the symptoms physically that come in the fight flight response are similar experiences to people that have panic attacks or have anxiety. They keep a dry mouth. Their breathing can get shallow and rapid. Problems with indigestion, constipation, wound up norepinephrine surges throughout their body. And so there is a great overlap between a panic attack, symptoms of anxiety, and fight flight. But just because you have a fight flight response, that does not mean that you've got an anxiety disorder. And in fact, just because you have an anxiety like PTSD doesn't mean you had to experience fight flight. The key to a diagnosis of PTSD is that the event that you experience, your reaction to that event is one of horror. It's a horrible thing that you've seen, and you can't get past it. Part of what we're beginning to move into is this graph that shows that there are certain levels of arousal. In the center of the hump there, you see optimal arousal, and you see that the higher your arousal goes, that's the axis quality of performance. I'm sorry, quality of let me blow this up so I can see it better. Quality of performance and anxiety level. As your anxiety level or your arousal level, and we got to distinguish between arousal and anxiety. as your arousal begins to go up, your performance goes up. When you're mildly alert, you're going to be closer to reaching the hump of optimum level. But if you get overstimulated, over aroused, you're going to experience a stress response, anxiety, panic, fight flight response. When you're experiencing a fight flight response, you'll remember that it's on automatic pilot. That's not something you can easily control because it kicks in. And a possum doesn't have to think about playing dead. It kind of naturally happens. It's hardwired Mother's Nature way of protecting us by getting us ready to either fight or flee. Well, that involves arousal. And today we're going to be moving on to how do we begin to reprogram our fight flight response. But before we do that, I'm going to, as usual, for the format of the show, I'm going to tell a fight flight story. So far, all the fight flight stories, well, 2 out of the 3 fight flight stories I have told were personal experiences. Today, I'm going to tell a secondhand story that happened on an expedition that I was on, but it didn't personally occur to me. But there was a group of us, as you might imagine, in the woods, in the wilderness. I mentioned that we camp in wildlife management areas, that we state parks and national park campgrounds, and then we go deeper into the woods looking for Sasquatch. And I and 2 other people were set out on this point overlooking a valley. And during that night, we heard some coyotes kick in. And after the coyotes kicked in, we heard this Bigfoot roar rise above the coyote calls. And that was kind of interesting to hear. It was my first expedition, and so I really couldn't say whether it was a Bigfoot call or not, because I've never heard one, but I was told that it was. Well, that night when we got back from debriefing, we talked about what happened. This spot, there were 3 groups of people camping on this spot from where we heard that howl. There were 2 tents, and then a couple people were camping in their cars, sleeping in their cars. It can get kind of cold at night. And as we were looking out over the valley, to the left of us was a feed meadow. The wildlife management areas plant, in this case, it was a field of endive for the animals to eat. And if you looked down into the valley, we all noticed what you would think of as a Sasquatch highway, a huge, wide animal trail starting at the top of the mountain across the valley, going down to the river, and then crossing up the river and back up the side of the mountain to where we were sitting and where these folks were camping. And so oftentimes people scramble for this spot because it's a high activity spot with that Bigfoot highway being there, if you will. Well, as people were going to bed, 2 guys were in their cars, and 2 larger groups were in some tents. And everybody that had this experience reported kind of almost feeling the vibration on the ground before they started hearing thuds. And these thuds and this vibration was the footfalls of a Bigfoot getting closer to camp. And as it got into the general camping area, now you were hearing the boom, 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 the thuds. And one of the guys sleeping in his car, and this story's about his reaction, he said that as the Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, as it approached the car with each step, his car was bouncing up and down on the springs of his car from the footfalls onto the ground. And this thing comes up behind his car and lays its hand kind of like leaning slightly on the rear end of the car, and the shocks got pushed down to as low as they could go with the weight of this Bigfoot leaning on it. And so this guy's huddled up inside of his car in a sleeping bag on the driver's side, leaning back in his car so that his head is next to the rear window. It was, I forget what kind of, like a Toyota, a smaller Toyota. And the Bigfoot kept advancing, and as it got to his car and continued to go a little slower along his car, he could begin to hear the breathing, the heavy breathing of the Bigfoot. I've never heard one breathe, so I'm not even going to try and imitate the breathing sound. But it was notable in addition to the footfalls. And he heard the breathing, and the Bigfoot stopped walking right at the rear window of the side of the car that he was sleeping on. And when all this started, he was sleeping on his side with his back to the window. And he was just certain that this Bigfoot was staring in at him inside of his car. But he was too frightened to look. He didn't want to have that close of a face-to-face experience with the Bigfoot. So he tried to wrestle his cell phone out from his sleeping bag in his clothes, and as he's laying on his side, he just sticks his arm up over and takes a flash shot, hoping to get the picture of the Bigfoot's face in the window. Well, of course, the flash just bounced off the window, but when the flash went off, the Bigfoot tore off all the way past the car, all the way out of the exit of that particular camping area. And then there was a steep bank right across the street, gravel road from it, and it tore trail up that hill. You could see that trail where the Bigfoot tore through the brush the following day. And this guy jumped out of his car, looked around, got his seat in his position, started up his car, and just hauled Heine out of the camping area at a high rate of speed. And these roads that we were on were not high speed roads. And so a bunch of other people piled in their car because they were concerned for this guy's safety, because he completely freaked out. He just wanted to get the heck out of there as quickly as he can. And that was his example, another example of a fight-flight response. And in that case, obviously, the choice his autonomic nervous system made for him was to flee. And I say the choice his nervous system made for him, again, to make the point that for most people, the fight-flight reaction is on automatic pilot. It happens. It kicks in without you having to think about it. You don't have to think about, okay, I'm going to freak out. It just happens and overwhelms you. And so this arousal curve that I had up earlier, if you're at optimum level, when you kick into fight-flight, your anxiety gets high, you begin to panic, you go into full-blown panic attack. And when this is happening, you're not thinking, you're just reacting. So today, what we're going to begin to do is I'm going to begin to teach you some of the basic skills you need to learn how to reprogram your fight-flight response. Well, wait a minute. You said it's not in your control. That's true. I think it was a psychologist by the name of Herbert Benson, however, was doing some other type of investigation and was noticing that as his patients relaxed, their blood pressure went down, their heart rate went down, their pupils constricted down to normal size, they had better digestion, and salivary glands worked better. And what he realized was that relaxation is the key to beginning to modulate or reprogram your fight-flight response. So honestly, when Doug Hychek and I briefly discussed the fight-flight topic, I thought this might be a 1 or 2 or maybe at the longest 3 show kind of series, but I think we're looking at closer to 7 to 8. Craig Roach asks, what does it mean when you hesitate and fully assess the situation before you react? Well, it means that you're not necessarily going into a fight-flight response. Odds are that you may have had a history of having to deal with trauma or deal with tense situations, or people who are pugilists and got into a lot of fights throughout their life. They don't get scared at confrontation the way a lot of other folks do. And so if you had that experience and over, you kind of get desensitized to that fear, and you can still think prior to a fight-flight response kicking in, if any fight-flight response kicks in at all. That's a great question, Craig. So in the next series of sessions, in the next series of shows, I'm going to teach you relaxation training. And through these, I'm going to treat you guys, the listeners, as if you were my clients at the VA or in my private practice. I'm going to explain this stuff to you exactly the way I explained it to my clients. That makes it easier for me. Don't have to read off cards because it's welded in there. I'm going to teach you guided imagery, which kind of builds on relaxation. I think then we're going to drop down to stress inoculation. And stress inoculation used to be called systematic desensitization on the bottom there. But it could be a 2-show episode in and of itself. Similarly, self-hypnosis. And I should have taken systematic desensitization out of that slide. My bad. I'm going to be teaching you the 7 steps involved in self-hypnosis and basically quickly demonstrating some of those steps. And we'll wrap up with neuro-linguistic programming, the swish technique. So today I've got my dog locked up in his room so he wouldn't come into the show. But as you can hear, I've got a cat here in with me. So I apologize for that. I didn't think about locking the cat up. Sorry. First thing I'm going to do is teach relaxation training. Today we're going to talk about 3 things: pursed lip breathing, which is one form of deep breathing; autogenic relaxation. Auto means self, genic from the word genesis. So self-genesis, self-creation of relaxation; and progressive relaxation. Let me see if I can get this cat out of here. I'm sorry. Before we actually go on to this, I need to emphasize a few points. Relaxation is the foundation, the most important skill to master before you can learn to reprogram your fight-flight response. If you don't take the time to get good at relaxing through these exercises I'm going to be speaking with you about, if you don't get good at learning to relax, you will not be able to reprogram your fight-flight response. The reason the relaxation is so important is, going back to that curve, fight-flight is on the very high level of arousal, and your performance is not good. So we're taking that high level of arousal, anxiety, fear, stress reactions. We're taking that and we're combining it with a deep state of relaxation. So for my psychology friends out there, I might have a dog trainer friend that I'm working with tuning in. Your fight-flight is an unconditioned fight-flight response is an unconditioned response. It naturally happens. No one taught you how to have a fight-flight reaction. They just happen. But we're going to pair it with what is initially called an unconditioned stimuli, the relaxation. And there's a principle in psychology called reciprocal inhibition. Reciprocal inhibition means you can't be relaxed, deeply relaxed, and anxious at the same time, or deeply relaxed and fearful at the same time. So you need to get excellent at relaxing. After you've seen the techniques. If you want to learn how to reprogram your fight-flight response relatively quickly, you need to be doing some form of relaxation exercise at a minimum of 3 times a week. Because this may not be a skill you naturally have. And like any other skill, the more you practice it, the better you become at that skill. So you shouldn't expect to be able to just get immediately relaxed the first time. You shouldn't expect yourself after 1 week of practicing to get and stay deeply relaxed. 5 times a week for 3 weeks should get you a pretty good jump on relaxation. And you want to continue to practice relaxing even as we move into some of the other skills for actually remodeling or reprogramming your fight-flight response. But I can't emphasize enough the importance. Kitty, no. I can't emphasize enough the importance of learning to relax. I'm sorry, I didn't think about the cat, thought about the dog. So the first relaxation technique I'm going to teach you is pursed lip breathing. Now, this is just a form of deep breathing. Some people probably already know how to do diaphragmatic. What the heck? Diaphragmatic breathing. I do not know what happened here. Okay. If you know how to do diaphragmatic breathing, or you've done yogic breathing, or just somebody else has taught you another form of deep breathing, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use that. I'm just offering up what I think of as one of the most simple techniques to relax, to learn how to deep breathe. I first was exposed to pursed lip breathing in my first rehabilitation job in Philadelphia. And this was a physical rehabilitation unit with people who had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So they would come into the hospital and get their medication straight to try and improve their oxygen saturation in their bloodstream. And interestingly enough, a study was done on this technique. These people were taught how to do pursed lip breathing 24/7 in a week or two stay that they were in the hospital, in the rehab that I was working in. And just the breathing alone, when you controlled for the severity of the disease and you controlled for the medications that the different people in the different groups were taking, just the pursed lip breathing and doing that on a regular basis dramatically increase the oxygen saturation levels in their bloodstream, which of course then makes it easier for them to breathe. So to learn how to pursed lip breathe, it's pretty simple. If you know what a pursed lip is, like maybe when you were younger, you kissed a girl or a guy with a pursed lip. An easy way to remember it or think about it is when you put your lips around the straw, you're pursing your lips around the straw to suck the liquid through the straw into your mouth. We're not going to use a straw, but we are going to use pursed lip breathing, especially on the exhale. If you want to use it on the inhale, you can. But I encourage you to use it on the exhale. And when you breathe in, you can breathe in through your nose and mouth at the same time. Of course, you're taking in oxygen, but you're also taking in lots of toxins. And so when you exhale, your capillaries absorb the oxygen into your bloodstream and you exhale the poisons. So, for example, I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose and mouth, and I'm going to exhale with pursed lips. In general, I look for a 2-to-1 ratio. For every second that I breathe in, I purse my lips on the exhale and work on making it, or not work, allow it to be twice as long as the inhale. So I'm going to try and do the blue screen thing here that I still haven't got a handle on. But I'm going to count on my fingers how deeply I breathe in, and then I'm going to count on my fingers, excuse me, how long my exhale takes. And I just naturally do this with my eyes closed. You can do it with your eyes open or closed. I apologize for closing my eyes, but here we go. So breathing in, one, no. So I breathed into about the count of 4 or 5, and I exhaled to about the count of 10 or 11. Now, you don't have to get real obsessive compulsive about making sure it's exactly twice as long, your exhales exactly twice as long as your inhale. I did the counting for demonstration purposes. It's not required to do the counting when you actually do it. Okay. I did that to make the point that you want your exhale through your pursed lips to be considerably longer, twice as long or longer as your inhale. And we'll start every relaxation exercise that I teach you by taking 3 deep breaths. And so now I'm going to just demonstrate that. Allowing that deep breath to come to a natural end, and then taking your second deep breath in and exhale slowly. And then taking your third and final deep breath in, I'm going to ask you to notice how when you breathe in, your body takes on tension. And when you exhale, your body releases that tension. So taking that third and final deep breath in now. Exhale. And then we would move into the next to beginning another formal relaxation exercise. But if you want an interesting challenge, I encourage people by all means to set an egg timer for 5 minutes. And for 5 minutes, just do pursed lip breathing, just like I did for those breaths, those 3 breaths. Just continue to breathe in that fashion for 5 minutes. And I suggest, 5 minutes, that sounds like a piece of cake. You will be amazed how much of a challenge it can be to just sit and focus on breathing for 5 minutes. When you do that kind of relaxation exercise, or any of the others that we're going to talk about, you're going to find that thoughts start intruding and interrupt the relaxation exercise. Your conscious mind, if you will, starts kicking in, and you start thinking about what you're going to do today, what you're going to do tomorrow, what do you need to do after this video's over. And the conscious mind works against relaxation and secretes hormones into your body that cause stress. And we're trying to secrete the hormones in our body that relax us and keep us calm. Okay? Any questions about pursed lip breathing? My cat has some. None? Okay. So now we're going to move on to autogenic relaxation. And this may all be all we get to today, looking at the time here. Autogenic relaxation, auto, self, genesis, creation. I use this, and I think this is an excellent exercise for people who have a very active mind to learn how to relax, because to be successful with this technique, you've got to shut down the conscious mind. You're gonna get those intrusive thoughts. You'll hear sounds outside the room, inside the room. You'll be distracted by any number of things. And as you're doing this or any other technique, when you realize you've been distracted or you've gotten off track, what you want to do is just passively acknowledge that, oh, I've gotten off track. I need to get back focusing when relaxing. Do not beat yourself up or bully yourself when you get distracted. Oh, you're such an idiot. Here you are trying to relax, and you're thinking about this or you're thinking about that. Don't beat yourself up. This is a skill. And just like any other skill, it's not necessarily going to come natural, and you're going to have to practice this skill. So be kind to yourself as you're learning this skill. And so this technique never worked for me until the very first time I had to teach it to a group of people. I could never get relaxed using this technique. But when I taught it to a group of people, I combined deep breathing with the words I was using. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to focus your awareness on your right hand, and I'm going to repeat a relaxing phrase 4 to 8 times on your right hand, then 4 to 8 times on your left hand, 4 to 8 times on your right leg, 4 to 8 times on your left leg, 1 to 3 times on both arms, and 1 to 3 times on both legs. And obviously we don't have the time. This takes about 20 to 25 minutes to go through an entire process with this particular technique. We don't have the time to do that. So I'm just going to demonstrate how I do it, simply so you can get a sense for how I'm combining my deep breathing as I'm saying it out loud. And I encourage people, as once you get comfortable with this, to get a DVD player or on your phone or however people record things these days, and make your own recording of yourself doing this exercise. You don't have to go out and buy a tape. If you buy a relaxation tape, you're at the mercy of the person and their pace that they're doing it. My arms relax really fast, so I can only do 2 on the right arm, 2 repetitions on the left arm, but it takes me a lot longer to relax my legs. So I need 5 or 6 repetitions on my legs to get them relaxed. And when you buy your own relaxation tape, you're at the mercy of the person's pace on that tape. Once you get the basic skill of this technique down, you can then talk yourself through it while recording and do it at the pace that's comfortable for you. So we'll pretend that I've taken my 3 deep breaths. And now I'm going to ask you to focus your awareness on the muscles of your right arm. The fingers on your right hand, the joints between each portion of your fingers, the palm of your hand, your wrist, your forearm, your elbow, your biceps and tricep muscles. And I'm going to ask you to think to yourself as you hear me say this phrase over and over, and simply repeat it with me over and over. And the phrase goes something like this. Now I'm relaxing my right arm. Feeling more calm and feeling more peace. Now I'm relaxing my right arm. Feeling more calm and feeling more peace. And I might repeat that 2 or 3 more times. We'll shift to our left arm, same on our left arm. Shift down to our right leg, same on the right leg. But as I continue shifting from one limb to another, and as I get more relaxed, I allow the exhales to get longer and longer and draw out the sentence longer. So by the time I'm at my right leg, it'll be something like this. Now I'm relaxing. My right leg. Feeling more calm. Feeling more peace. So by the time that I get to both arms You know, sometimes just saying the word I, takes the whole breath. Or now. Now I'm relaxing. So I apologize. I've been having some ads come onto my screen here that's blocking my chat, and I do not know how to get rid of them. Let's see. No, that's not doing it. There it is. Okay. So 4 to 8, 3 deep breaths, pursed lip breathing. 1 to 4 repetitions of now I'm relaxing my right arm, feeling more calm, feeling more peace. But you can see how I drew it out with my breath. And then left arm, now I'm relaxing my left arm, feeling more calm, feeling more peace. Right leg, left leg, both arms. Now I'm relaxing both my arms, feeling more calm and feeling more peace in both your legs. And then after you get through it, you just sit and enjoy the relaxation as long as you want to. When you're ready to come out of the relaxation, you just talk yourself back out of it. So gradually, I'm allowing a refreshing and reviving energy to seep back into the muscles of my arms and legs. I can feel that energy flowing back into the muscles of my toes, maybe moving my toes a little bit, feeling that refreshing and reviving energy flowing back into my body. That refreshing and reviving energy flowing into the muscles of my fingers and into my hands and up my wrist and into my forearms, becoming more alert and aware, refreshed and revived, so that you can go on with the rest of your day in a normal and natural fashion. And you just continue to repeat those kinds of sentences where you're focusing on feeling more energized, awake, alert, revived, refreshed, going on with the rest of your day in a normal and natural fashion. You want to become completely alert and aware before you go on with the rest of your day. You don't need to be walking around sedated and tired. I've used this technique to help people get off of Xanax. They had become addicted to Xanax for sleep. And you can get, I'm sorry, I'm a drinker. You can get just as relaxed doing 20 to 30 minutes of relaxation, that technique, as you can drinking a 6-pack of beer. For some people, 6-pack of beer might be a better relaxation exercise, but this is a skill we have within our own body, and you can teach yourself to cultivate that skill and get better and better with it. So at this point, I think I'm going to wrap up and entertain any questions for a few minutes. Anybody have any questions about this? The next technique, as I'm waiting for questions that we're going to go on to, is progressive relaxation. And that's where we'll pick up after yet another fight flight story next week. We'll start on progressive relaxation and then guided imagery, going to a relaxing, peaceful place, a safe place, and positive visualization. So that's kind of a little tease for our next session. Any questions? No questions? I must be an awesome teacher. I said that one other time. I'm not that awesome of a teacher, but these are pretty simple skills. Again, these are abilities we have within our own body. But as we get caught up in our life and go through our day, we forget how to do this. Once, the first few times as you're first learning this exercise, it's going to take you 30 to 35 minutes to go through a whole exercise. But as you get better at relaxing, you'll get relaxed quicker and quicker, to the point, if you've ever seen yogis or the monks, they put their fingers together. Well, when you're in a deeply relaxed state, if you put two fingers together and create a little pressure, you're pairing that pressure on your fingers with that it's a light pressure. You're pairing it with that deeper relaxed state. And as you do that over and over again, eventually, when you want to get relaxed, you'll be able to take your 3 deep breaths and just touch your fingertips together, and you're going to go down into a deep state of relaxation very, very quick. Okay, well, guys, I really appreciate your time and attention. Don't hesitate to ask any questions in the future. That's what we're here to do, is learn from each other. And I don't have all the answers. I'm just passing on some psychological skills and techniques that we're going to use to reprogram your fight-flight response. But if you don't get the relaxation down, you're never going to learn to reprogram your fight-flight response. So by all means, practice this relaxation technique. If you have my book, it's available on Amazon. I've got things into the current publisher that's going to be coming out. But if you have my book, in my book, on this section of relaxation, I have this whole script written out so that you can literally just read it into a recorder, doing things with your voice like I've done. And it's all there for you, as is all the other things that I'm going to teach you. All righty. Well, I guess I'm going to say goodbye. As I'm trying to do more regularly, I'm going to ask you to keep your mind open, your boots on the ground, and your heart open to your higher power. Good evening. Be safe out there. Thank you.
I see you running out of reason. Don't try to blame it on the seasons. Why you wanna walk away? When we began, swear we had something that would last. Baby, has the feeling passed? Falling in was easy. How do I make a stay? I'll never let go of you. Tried and true. Oh, I'll never let go of you. Tried and true. Was I a fool? I know sometimes I may wonder, but I would never leave asunder a thing as good as what we have. Is it a rule? What's good is worth the fighting. There ain't no denying that you and I were made to last. Falling in is easy. How can we make it stay? I'll never let go of to the start. I'll never let go of you, tried and true. I'll never let go of you, tried and true. Tried and true.
Wanna do it all with you by my side. If you're in, meet me here tonight. Be brave and come